Hello there and welcome to TTM Boxing Monthly. I'm David Hancock and as usual I'm joined by my partner in crime, James Harrison.
Hello, hiya.
Right?
Yeah, very well, thank you
And
very
today
much.
we are joined by a former boxer, now trainer and obviously Sky Sports pundit, Mr. David Coldwell. Hello
How you
Dave,
doing,
how are
guys? You
you?
all right?
Yeah, we're
Very
doing
good, thanks.
great.
Very good.
The family all right?
Yeah, good. Really good, thanks. Got after this podcast, I've got to take my son to football. He's one of his many days in the week where it's all football training. Yeah, it's all good. Family's healthy, happy, and kids are looking forward to Christmas. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's all good.
it's the expensive time of year.
Yeah, definitely.
Does it get worse when they get older or not?
Well, this year, so it was because my daughter's turned 17 and she's learning how to drive. So, with her, part of the deal was that if she smashed her exams at school, then I would get her a car. So she smashed her exams, so I had to get her a car and obviously fund her driving lessons. So that's an expensive one before Christmas. So yeah.
Yeah. And then they'll want something. In the old days, it used to be you got the car and then you'd want the CD player for the car. And now it's obviously
No,
sort
all
of
right, we're all
progressed,
right with this
doesn't
one.
it?
Yeah. It's just that I know what's coming. It'll be, Dad, can you put some petrol in the car, please? Because I can't afford my petrol. So
Oh,
that'll be coming up.
we've all been down that road. I remember my dad got me a little banger, and without him knowing, I went to Halfords and got a pay monthly thing. When I got the rims, I got the speakers, I got the tinted windows with little plastic things, and yeah, I finished paying that off about a decade ago. So yeah.
So basically, we're going to go over a little bit of your history going into boxing, and then obviously near the end, we're going to talk a little bit because it's a very busy week for you. You've had
Yeah.
last weekend was busy, and the next couple of weeks are, I can only imagine, as pure chaos.
Yeah.
So obviously, you've talked a lot about your family background. I don't want to go into that too much. Obviously, you've talked about on many podcasts.
Yeah.
When you were obviously boxing pro at Ingle's Gym, did you feel then, obviously it's become a real big thing now, the Ingle's Gym, there's this whole mystique about it that obviously so many fighters came from there. Did you feel at the time that you were becoming part of some sort of history making thing, if that makes sense?
I've got to say that looking back on it now, and even when I was there, you knew it was special. But looking back on it now, with an older head on, you do look back and think, wow, that was an unbelievable time. But even being in amongst it, when I first went there, there was Bomber Graham, there was Johnny Nelson coming through. I think he'd won his first British title, and this was before he won the second one. So there was Bomber, Johnny. There was Brian Anderson, who was British champion. There was Slugger O'Toole, Paul Silky Jones. Then there was young Naz turning pro. There was Ryan Rhodes as a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this. And then I was talking about this in the gym the other day. Because the first face I ever saw when I walked into the gym was a guy called Paul Stinger Mason, and people these days would call him journeyman, but he wasn't a journeyman. Back then, you would win some, lose some, but you always went to try and win. There was none of this just try and get through it. They would always try and win. And Paul was a hard, tough journeyman for a lot of the good super middleweights at the time. And he popped into the gym. First time I've seen him for a decade. And there were fighters. Like the gym was full of fighters like that, Wayne Windles, people like that would win some, lose some, but had good names in the sport because they always gave the prospects and tough fights. Nigel Bradley went on a run where he was beating unbeaten fighters. Chris Saunders, I remember, he was I think he was 11-16, and then went on a run where he won his next 6 fights, ended up becoming British champion. So the gym was stacked full of in depth of different level fighters, but special characters, great atmospheres. You know, it was phenomenal. I was there for 10 years, and to watch the progression, and then the next wave of fighters come through there. Then it became like your John Paxsons, your Pelly Reeds, Neville Browns, people like, it was just consistently wave after wave. And the one man that stayed all the way through was Johnny Nelson. And to see Johnny from being like a young, skinny cruiserweight, at I think 22, where he won the British title, and then coming back and winning the British title again, then going on to win the European, and then fighting and winning the world title to finish, I think, 5-6 years unbeaten as world champion. Unbelievable. The gym was just absolutely flying, full of characters, full of experience.
You've talked a lot on previous interviews that when you were growing up, you suffered like a lot of racism.
Yeah.
Was the gym the one place where that completely disappeared? Because obviously there was a very mixed background there. Obviously, one of the big stars, obviously Prince, was not your standard like white boy, as it were.
No.
So did you feel that sort of broke the barriers, if that makes sense? Brendan obviously didn't really give a crap, I'm guessing, from it.
No, what he did is he was completely unorthodox. I remember the first day that I walked into the gym, he starts literally, basically, they're calling you names that I'd get called on the street and that were upsetting me. And it's basically, it's conditioning your mind to so you don't react. Because what he was always big on, and it's something that I've always kept in my mind, moving forward, and it's how I've lived my life, is, we used to do these exhibitions at Doncaster Lindholm Prison, and there used to be a lot of ex-boxers that were in prison. In fact, a good friend of mine who was in the top 10, and then and something happened, and he ended up going to jail. And this something that happened was something that Brendan always just guarded us against. You're out on a night out, somebody's had a few drinks, and somebody says something to you, tries to wind you up, causes grief, and you react to it. And the next minute, it turns from being verbal into physical. You chin them, they hit their head on the floor, manslaughter, or just assault. And because you're the boxer, you're the one that goes to jail, and your career's down the pan. Even if, this friend of mine, he went to jail for about 18 months, I think it was. He got his sentence, but the time out of his career cost him, because he was on a road towards fighting a British title. So Brendan always used to guard us about that. And the way that he helped us with that was condition his mind. So name calling and things like that in the gym would mean that whenever somebody said something in the street, going through one ear, out the other, you weren't fussed, because you was conditioned to handle it. And, it didn't matter what race you were, what color you were, what religion you were, would all be, they'd all be winding each other up. And so you knew that it was nothing out of it. It wasn't like a shock and, oh, how dare you say that to me? And then you react to it.
I've got to ask, because I read the book. Were you there when this whole book came out that apparently calls that? Did you read? Have you read the book?
Passages years ago.
I did, because I read the book and I didn't really see much in it for there to be much upheaval. It seemed quite a non-biased. I felt it didn't make Prince seem that bad. And then obviously it kicked off. I mean, I only know about this book obviously because it came up on my feed about this. Prince has seen doing this interview on Sky Sports. But did that destroy anything in the gym, or did it just sort of disappear? Because obviously I know their relationship broke down.
Yeah, it was
see it as awful.
It was going downhill for a long time. Naz just basically stopped listening, stopped doing what made him so great. Listen, there was two sides to Naz. One side, he was great, and he was a diamond or a kid, but the other side was he talked to people like shit. And Brendan would be one of them, and we'd be in the gym sometimes, and you'd hear how he'd speak, and it's like, and then or how he'd speak to other people. But then he could be such the most nicest person in the world, proper nice kid. But what you tend to get with people that are, for want of a different word, is superstars, is that there is something in the character that makes them different to everybody else.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have this little flaw in the character where maybe they can be a little bit obnoxious, a little bit arrogant, maybe, but that's part of their mental makeup that's allowed them to get to where they are. So you got to understand that as well. But the book, I think, was just a reflection of what the thought process were at that time and what was going off. But it was going wrong long before this split.
I mean, you talk about Prince Naseem Hamed as a very, very young boy when I was growing up. My dad, massive boxing fan, he sat me down and we used to watch it. It was Nigel Bradley, Chris Eubank. It was that sort of era. And he goes, you need to watch this guy. And for me, I was just mesmerised, absolutely mesmerised by him. Now, they all say that geniuses are flawed in a football world. You can look at someone like Zinedine Zidane as a perfect example with his headbutt on Marco Materazzi in the World Cup final. Do you believe, if for that final fight, we all know the fight that he lost, if he had Ingle in his corner, do you think it would have been a different result?
It's not just a case about being in his corner, it's a case about listening this is what I'm saying, is when people talk about saying, oh, he shouldn't have left Brendan and things like that, he wasn't listening to Brendan at that point. When you come to a point where you are no longer listening to the people that helped get you there and helped create you, if you're no longer listening, then that's broken. If you can't bring yourself back, and if you haven't got the mentality to bring yourself back and understand it's going wrong, I'm slipping, my performances aren't as good or whatever, and you're looking at it thinking, well, I'm not doing what I used to do. If you can't take yourself back, then really you do have to try and find somebody that you are going to listen to. Now, the problem is if you find that person and they're not the right fit for you, then you're stuffed. And you've got to understand that Naz's style, his whole persona, everything about him was very, very unique. And so to be able to handle that, be able to get the best out of that sort of style with the flaws, with the mistakes, but to be able to disguise them or what have you, you need to understand that style. And the problem is that he just, as soon as he cracked it, which is quite, you've got to understand where he's come from. And this is what happens with a lot of people. People talk about footballers these days. A lot of people come from a background where they have nothing, and then they work so hard to get to a point where they have everything. When they have everything, it's only natural for the mind to sometimes just relax, the drive to sometimes not quite be there. And it only has to be small percentages. When you're dealing at top level sport, the small percentages can be a massive, massive factor, because the guys that you're coming up against, haven't got what you've got. They've still got that same drive, that same determination, and they're willing to do more than what you are doing. So therefore, they can catch you up and pass you out. Mentality and dedication. It's such a it's a fine line. Small percentages make a massive difference at the top. We can all get away with it when we're at a lower level.
Yeah.
And you're not in against that caliber opponent. You're not in against that caliber of mentality. We've seen so many times in boxing where you see a guy and you don't think technically he's good enough to beat the other guy, but he has that desire, that mental toughness, and he's willing to do whatever it takes. If you're not willing to do whatever it takes, once you get to a certain point, it's only a matter of time before somebody else catches you up.
Yeah, it's the silk pajamas analogy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think now boxing's changed in the fact that in the older days people liked the shit talk, and now, and obviously the big lavish stuff, whereas now I feel like now people like the person who's come from nothing, the person who stays grounded. And I think that's probably one of the, obviously when Tony called out David Hay was a bit of an extravagant. He was well known for his Instagram stuff. Obviously, Tony was a guy who all he really cared about was his wife and having a nice house and paying for the wedding. And do you feel that now sells more? People like someone who's grounded.
I think it's a blend. It's a mix, because there are always people that are that like the flash, brash sort of personalities because they're engaging. you know. But then also in the, I just think it's authenticity. I just think people have got to be themselves. If you are naturally flash, and you're gonna like want to talk shit, and you're gonna want to be that kind of personality because that is you, then it comes across as genuine. And even people don't usually like that kind of personality, they might warm to it because it comes across as genuine. That's just how they are. And as long as you're backing up, it's all right. But then in the climate that we're in right now is where a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people have got a lot of problems behind closed doors. And whereas they may not speak about it, if they see that somebody that they're watching their TV screen or something that they're listening to is kind of going through the same sort of things, or have been through the same sort of things, they kind of think, I can identify with that, and that helps them get through their own shit, for a better word. So there are, there's a catchment for both kinds of styles of self-promotion or personalities, be it the brash or be it the more reserved and more humble sort of people. So I think there's enough space for both, to be honest.
I feel like in boxing you need some. I feel like now the boxing likes a hero and they love a villain, and the villain's always the guy who spends loads of money, is big and extravagant. Like, we'll bring it out because I know James is itching to bring it up, but Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. It feels like Amir Khan is already slowly. They're trying to push him as the villain. He's trying to be pushed as the villain.
I'm all about Kell Brook. I'm telling you now, people were writing him off saying he looks chunky, he looks this, he looks that. Ridiculous. I'm telling you, he's going to catch him. He will catch him. He will catch him.
Well, excuse my dog.
That's all good.
I think he wants to get in on conversation as well. Khan's always had that kind of undercurrent where people haven't liked him. But he's also, at times, he's not helped himself with things that he's said, the thing, that, and how he's, things that he's done. But in this whole Kell Brook, Amir Khan thing, it's gone on that long.
Yeah.
And I remember Khan used to say, Kell needs to do this first, and then Kell would do that. Kell needs to beat him, and then he'd do that. Kell needs to become a world champion, and then he'd do that. But the fight always never seemed to happen. If you're not involved in negotiations and you're not involved in the talks and all that sort of stuff, it's very difficult to point finger at properly. But both are big characters. Both have been involved in things where people have gone, oh, what are you doing? And both have done things where you go, wow, that was brilliant. Khan never gets the credit that he deserves as a fighter. Whether you like his personality or not, he's always showed plenty of balls.
Yeah.
He's been a great fighter. He's obviously what he did in the Olympics as a youngster, but then becoming world champion and taking the fights he has done since. And whether he's won or lost, he's always gone in there and been willing to roll the dice. Kell's career, I feel Kell's potential has never really been realized. And there's been gaps in his career, and there's been things that have sometimes not his fault, sometimes his fault. It's just how things are. The 2 eye injuries have completely wrecked his later career. But again, he doesn't get the credit of he didn't win the fights, but Errol Spence and Golovkin, they were massive fight. Stepping up and fighting Golovkin was nuts. And the fight that he gave Golovkin at the time was
the uppercut.
It was unbelievable.
I remember.
But it's the 2 fighters that both sets of fans are never going to give the other one credit. And sometimes you have to take away your personal feelings towards people and just give credit where it's due for what they've achieved in their own individualities. Do you know what I mean? And, my feeling on this fight is that obviously, like everybody else, it's way too late, but better late than never.
Yeah.
And we get to see something. And one thing you have to remember is whoever wins when they fight doesn't mean that they would have won when they were both at the peaks. We will never know who would have won at the peak because this fight will not tell us that. This fight will tell us who's got what left and who wins on at this stage of their careers, you know?
Who do you, I mean, you could be working Sky Sports that night, I don't know. But
I don't know.
Who do you think wins it? Or do you have an
I genuinely, because both of them aren't the same fighters. It's like Kell's been out of the ring for so long. How's he been living his lifestyle? Because I know how he lived his lifestyle during his career when he was active. So how's he been living? What damage has that put onto his career? Will he be able to take a shot? Because if he can't take a shot anymore, then it doesn't matter that Khan's not a massive puncher. Khan used to be lightning fast. Is he as fast now? He doesn't look as fast now in his recent fights. You know, is Khan less fragile than what he was? There's so many things in this. This is why I'm saying the fight now isn't any comparison to what it would have been. It's about who's got what left and what can they do on that. And also the weight, 149 for Kell to make that weight is going to kill Kell. What's that going to do to him? You know, that's going to kill him. So that's, you know, Kell's at more of a disadvantage on that respect. But I just don't know, because if Kell clips Khan, he'll knock Khan out. You know, he can, but I wouldn't rule out, because of the stage that Kell's career is at now, I wouldn't rule out Khan being able to do that to Kell. You know, you just don't know, because you don't. If you're a shell of a fighter, your resistance isn't there anymore. So we don't know where Kell is now. So it's an intriguing fight. And this is when people turn around and say, "Oh, it won't do the numbers." Oh, and this is it. Listen, let's be real. Everybody loves a grudge match. Everybody and this is genuine. And people, you know, I've heard people say, "Oh, yeah, but have you not seen these two kids for the last 10 years, whatever it is?" They've always hated each other. And not only that, it's the fans of each other have always had bad things to say about the other one, always. And so there is so much riding on this, and there is going to be so much like intensity coming up fight week, last 2 weeks. I'm telling you, it's going to sell. I'm telling people. I've always said when people have been saying to me, asking me about the fight, and I got to a point where I'm not interested. Don't talk to me about it. If the fight gets signed and it's announced, I'll be excited and I'll watch it 100%. And that's what will happen. People say, "No, I'm not watching it. Oh, it's a waste of time. It's too late." But when it comes down to that last week, fight week, I'm telling you, you're watching it.
Well, I got, I subscribed to the Boxer newsletter and ticket allocation, and I got an email back 2 days ago from them, from Ticketmaster. Tickets go on sale Friday at midday, and I was part of the pre-sale list. Over 100,000 people have signed up for that, and that's at the old MEN Arena. So that would sell over 2 or 3 times over. So you're absolutely right. It will sell, and we all will watch it as well, because Amir Khan, I followed this guy since that Brader's press con knockout, where he went over, he got robbed against Lamont Peterson, and where he beat Zab Judah, Maidana. I mean, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful fighter. And again with Kell Brook, and I think it's good for Britain. I think it's massive that we can still bring these big time boxing shows, and we're only getting stronger. David, move us on. Where are we going next?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the people say it's an old fight, but I just think I was smiling when you were talking. It just gets me so excited, because the hatred, and I know you shouldn't wish it, but they hate each other, and style like teasing the face to face, the gloves are off, and you just know it's going to be such a big fight for Sky at the moment. Obviously, they're trying to get their schedules together, and it's just brilliant. It's a great fight. Right. So we'll talk about the next few weeks you've got ahead. Jordan Gill this Saturday. How's he feeling? How's he doing? Good? Ready?
Yeah, very good. He's a brilliant talent. I'm so proud of how he's developed over the last couple of years. He's had a lot of bad luck, injuries and illness. He had a bad thyroid issue probably about a year or 18 months ago now. And then obviously with lockdowns and things like that, things got put back. But he's worked consistently in the gym. He's just worked away, improving as an all-round fighter. He's he's ready now.
He had an opponent
he's looking
change
forward
as
to
well.
the fight.
The opponent
Yeah, the European champion got ill, pulled out, and it's only been put back a few weeks. So we're fighting him in January. So this is an 8-rounder against an Argentinian. Who it'll be a good, because Jordan's not fought since February, so it'll be good to go in there and get the 8 rounds under his belt or whatever it is. He's a tough Argentinian, rangy, quite long armed, because I didn't want to go from preparing for Guerfe, who's rangy and quite long armed, to go into fighting a short, squat sort of guy. So we've got somebody that's, at least we've got the similar sort of problems. So I'm going to use this fight as part of the preparation for the Guerfe fight. But obviously, it's serious. You have to, you can't have any slip-ups in this fight.
And you obviously, next week, you've got another big week.
I've got a massive week next week.
You've got Leron Richards. He's making his DAZN debut, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, I think that's on the Sky. Yeah.
How do you think that's going to go?
Do you know what? It's a massive fight, this, because it's for the IBO world title. But I've said to Leron, I ain't calling you a world champion if you win that. Don't forget that. It's the fight itself.
Yeah.
In Carlos Gongora, he's fighting a top 5 super middleweight. He's fighting one of the best out there. So he beats Gongora. He can call out people like Caleb Plant. He can call out those sort of guys. This really puts him up there. In 15 fights, he's won British, Commonwealth, European championships. Now he's stepping at the top level in world class. So it's a huge fight for him, a huge opportunity, and he picks up the IBO world title. But Leron's an unbelievable talent. What he's been doing is just gelling, coming together since his last fight. He's just grown as a fighter. And the things that he does in that gym, you just look. I'm telling you, the kid's special. It really is. And if he performs like he's been performing in the gym, then the world's going to see what I get to see and what I know he's capable of. He's special.
I love your passion you've got.
Yeah, I'm sat here now thinking, Christ, I can't wait to tune in and watch it now after listening to that. Yeah.
The thing is, why I'm so proud of him is that when he first come to me, the first 2 camps really, until the last 2 weeks of the last camp, it was hard work getting him to do what I need him to do, because he's very, very naturally, he would be a kind of guy where he'll just do enough, and he was quite lazy with his legs. But now his work rate, everything is fantastic, and his skills are just phenomenal. He is that good. I'm really excited about him. It's a very, very dangerous fight. Gongora can really punch, tall, rangy, exciting sort of fighter. Will come to try and knock Leron out. Leron, as we know, as his record says, he's not the world's biggest puncher, but it's hard enough. You'd be surprised how hard he punches. So this is going to be a really, really good fight. And if you love to see boxing skills, this is the one.
Are you? How's the Chisora been? How's it been having Chisora with you in that?
Good. Do you know what? People say, "Oh, but it's really hard to work with." No, the only thing that's hard is that I'm 5'4" and 9 stone 6 and taking him on pads and I'm getting blasted to bits. Whereas, if I was a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, then it wouldn't be as hard work. But that's the only thing that's hard work. To him as a fighter, he's been great to work with, because he is doing what I'm asking him to do. Is he setting his own in his old ways in certain other aspects? Yes, and you have to keep bumping heads in terms of that. But he's worked really well. He's sparred really well, and he's finished off sparring. The last couple of sessions have been absolutely bang on. And I actually finished his sparring yesterday, because he was 12 rounds. He was nailed on, got it 100%. It's fit enough, work rate's great, doing everything I wanted him to do. So I'm really happy. So going into it, if he recreates what he did in sparring, then I'm very, very confident.
Do you think he goes? Do you think there's like, is the game? Oh, I don't know whether you could say the game plan, but is he just basically gonna go with him, or do you think he would like to knock him out just to put a statement like? So there's a lot of controversy with the first.
Oh yeah. Oh, listen, it's Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora wants to knock you out. I'm not turning Derek Chisora into Jordan Gill or Lerone Richards. You know, Derek Chisora is coming to knock you out. It's just that the Josie Parker that we're going to get is a better Josie Parker than that we've seen before, because Andy Lee's a very, very good coach, very, very good technician. The shots that Parker landed on Derek in the first fight, Derek can't afford to take those shots clean, because they'll be delivered with better accuracy and delivered technically better as well. So the impact's going to be more. So Derek has to not give him those free shots. But at the same time, is Derek is showing an improvement in his offense as well, where I believe that the shots that Derek lands on Parker will have much more of an effect.
Final question from me, because time ticks so fast during these interviews. It flies so unbelievably quick. 1 minute it's 5 past, the next it's 25 to. We go nicely talking about Derek Chisora. I just want one question on a WBC ruling which has come out over the past 48 hours, centering around an old opponent of Derek Chisora, which is Dillian Whyte. Do you think that fight with Fury can go ahead? And am I the only one in thinking he can cause Tyson real problems?
I'm so happy for Dillian that it's been made, that it's been mandated, and he gets his shot. Mate, if there's an heavyweight out there that deserves to fight for a heavyweight title, it's Dillian. You know, he's taken tough fights when he doesn't have to take tough fights, when he could just take easy fights. His resume is fantastic. So yeah, I'm over the moon for him. And can he give Tyson Fury a tough fight? Yeah, he can. He's not going to go in there and just try and box Tyson Fury. He's going to go for a tear up. And if he doesn't win the fight, then he'll have lost the fight, giving it everything, going out swinging and trying his hardest. That's one thing about Dillian is he will give it absolutely everything in there. But it's a good fight. Tyson Fury, sometimes he can be brilliant, sometimes he can look average. Let's not listen. Take away his great wins and his great performances. Don't forget there are plenty of performances in there where you look at me and think, he looks quite beatable. So you don't know. So it'll be interesting and it'll be exciting. However long it lasts, it'll be exciting. The build-up will be good too.
Absolutely.
I can't. I'm so happy for Dillian Whyte, because he's been waiting for it for so long, and I think he's been dodged. I think he was dodged. I think Wilder went for Fury originally because obviously he thought Fury was done. Obviously Fury wasn't done. He was going to come back and I'm just so happy for him. Just to wrap this up, I've got one last question I want to ask people when they come on. If there was one thing you could change in the boxing world, it can be anything related to do with boxing. It can be a rule or something. Is there something you'd like to change?
To narrow it down to one is quite tough. There's a couple.
You can do two if you like, Dave. It's all good.
So it's the PED situation. I think there's too many grey areas, and it needs to be a case of where you've got VADA, you've got UCAD, you've got whoever else, and they have their own different ban lists. So you can fail on X, but not fail on Y's list, which is bullshit. And that needs clarifying, and there needs to be one list that everybody goes by. And if you are found with that in your system,
that's it.
You get fucked. And it's like people like Miller and other people that have been found to be completely juiced up are getting away with like a couple of months. And then you get somebody like a Liam Cameron, for instance, who failed on a minute trace of coke, and he's got like 4 years or something like that. How can that be right? So it needs clearing up. That for me is something, because at the end of the day, it's, you know, there are different. You can get done for a stimulant and be out for a year, 2 years. Get done for a proper PED and be back boxing in 6 months.
Yeah, it's
and
wrong.
in 6 months, let's be real. Jordan Gill's not fought since February. Well, there's people that have failed drugs tests for PEDs, for proper PEDs, that have boxed in a closer window than that. Do you know what I mean? So for me, that's number one. Number two is that judges and referees need to be held accountable. Even a simple thing, a fighter gets beaten, he has a mic stuck in front of him at ringside, talk to us about your fight. And he's kind of like off explaining himself. If a coach has a fighter, does something wrong or anything like that, gets hauled up in front of the board, or if a coach makes a wrong decision in a fight, interview him and be, social media, they're saying this, what's your thoughts on blah, blah, blah. Why can't a referee or a judge, if everybody else in the world's seen a fight this way, but he sees it that way, a simple thing would be, mate, round 9, literally, it was all so-and-so, so-and-so. How did you score that round for X? If he then says, well, from where I was sat, I believe that so-and-so, so-and-so was catching him on the gloves, he was parrying, and I was counting that he was kept digging him with little counter shots to the body, which you might not have seen, and this. He explains, and you can half think, well, all right, I can half have that because he's explained, and that's his viewpoint. Everybody has, boxing subjective. Everybody has an opinion. And so you can't say, no, that's wrong. But that's his opinion. So at least allow him to express his opinion. So then we know that there is some sort of thought process behind how he scored that fight. Because that's what needs doing. Because also, can you say, well, my man was jabbing his head off at first minute and a half, 2 minutes at fight, 2.5 minutes at fight. The other man lands 3-4 big shots. Crowd go, ooh, and he rocks him with 3 or 4 big shots, but you give him the round. How does that work? Because aren't we supposed to say, well, it's points scored, but, defensive work, points scored. It's not a case of you land 3 big power shots that rock my head off, last 30 seconds. Oh, forget about the 2 minutes, 30 seconds work that the other man was boxing your head off. I'm giving the round to you. You have to be able to clear that out. And if the judge turns around and says, well, I preferred the big power shots at the end of the round, you might not agree with that, but he might. That's his perspective. But if he's explaining it, then you can say, all right, so that's why he scored it. So you understand why he scored it. And I just think just that one thing alone can help us understand and take out some sort of controversy out of it. But then, if it's a pure stinker, relegate them, stop them from
absolutely.
6 months. They can't. If it's a world title fight, they can't then judge a world title fight for 6 months and they go down to European domestic level. If it's a domestic title fight, a British title fight, they can't do that. They have to drop down to normal circuit, like just go back to being a ref, or they're not allowed to, if they're not a ref and they're just a judge, they're not allowed to do that. They can only do English level or because there's no judges in 6 or area. So it'd be an area, or they just don't judge for 6 months. There's got to be some sort of penalisation for it, for me, because there is in every other thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, David. I mean, going back to just very quickly stealing rounds, I remember Arthur Abraham made a career of doing that in the super middleweights. Yeah. He just turned it on for the last minute. But David, if from me personally, always been a massive fan of you. I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you. I'm genuinely serious. When David Hay says what he says at the press conference, I was like, what? No way, you can't do this, But I'm a massive fan of yours, and I've followed your career very, very closely, especially from behind the screen with Sky Sports. You're a credit to the actual to the trade, actually, and I want to thank you personally.
Yeah, I think it really helps that you're probably one of the most on the level people. I've seen numerous interviews, and you're just literally, you are what the label says, and I think it's really great to talk to you, and we really appreciate you being on this. So a big thank you.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
And thank you. I wish you the best Christmas. And thank you for being on
Amir again, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you.